Hello and welcome to the LMA Consulting Group webinar, The Amazon Effect, How Higher Customer Service Standards Impact Your Business and What You Need to Do to Thrive. My name is Julie Dorr and I will be your moderator for today's event. Our presentation will last approximately 45 minutes with remaining time available for your questions. Feel free to type in your questions in the designated section at the right and we'll hold them until the conclusion of the presentation. Also, if you'd like a copy of the presentation sent to you after today's webinar, feel free to type your email address in the question section right now or email me at julie@thedoorgroup.com and I'll be happy to send that to you. Before we get started, also please note that this webinar and all of the accompanying materials are protected by copyright and that the entire conference is being recorded. Now, let's get started. I'm very excited to welcome our expert and one of SAP's top 20 supply chain influencers, Lisa Anderson, as our speaker today. Known as the Manufacturing Connector, Lisa is the founder and the president of LMA Consulting Group, which specializes in optimizing manufacturing with eagle-eye production precision and a pragmatic approach to execution. A futurist and a big believer in building networks in person and virtually, Lisa's authored a number of articles, blogs, and a book, as well as been a presenter for a number of conferences. As someone who just recently opened our eyes, especially mine, on the skills gaps that have been happening in manufacturing, she's excited to share with you all the information and results from the Amazon Effect study she just completed. So Lisa, I'm going to turn everything over to you right now to get us started.
Excellent.
Lisa, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Great.
Excellent. Well, very good. I would like to welcome you to the webinar. Today we'll talk about, sorry about that. Today we will talk about why focus on customer service, why this is especially critical in today's new normal business environment, what were the Amazon Effect survey results, and what do those mean to us, and then what do we need to do to thrive utilizing those results, and how do we implement solutions that will help us with the new wave of customer service expectations via the Amazon Effect. And then last but not least, we'll talk about case studies and questions. So why focus on customer service? Well, I think the simplest way to put this is only do so if you either want to maintain your current customers or you want to grow your customers. And I imagine that everyone on this call wants to do one of those two things, which in essence means that we all have to make customer service a top priority. And especially with, as we'll see when we talk about the Amazon results, it's critical in today's environment. So why is customer service especially important in the new normal business environment? Well, what I do is I focus on manufacturing and distribution typically, and I have clients that are of all sizes, ranging from small companies to multi-billion-dollar companies. And if I see trends that are in common amongst almost all, if not all of my clients, I take note, because it means that it's something that is either changing, happening, something we can leverage, etc. And so I like to go over a couple of those with you because you'll see as they all relate back to why this topic is key. First, volatility is the new norm. So prior to the recession, just looking at the stock market as an example, a 100-point swing in a day was a big deal. Everybody got all in arms about it, everybody was talking about it, etc. In today's world, a 100-point swing is just like a blip in the radar. No one even notices. A couple of weeks ago, there was a couple 100-point swing. Didn't matter. And that's just one example. That's happening at all of my clients, is that if there's anything that's a constant, it's that volatility is happening every day. And we're not sure what might happen day to day as we come in with our customers, with our suppliers, with our supply chain network. You never know with natural disasters. They seem to occur more and more. So volatility is just the new normal. We have to become resilient and able to manage effectively with volatility and provide exceptional service, which leads us into the second one, and that is that customers' expectations are high. And this I've seen relate back to the recession as well. If you just think about it from a consumer standpoint, each one of us as individuals have probably either lost our job, known somebody who's lost their job, took a pay cut, or known someone who's took a pay cut, or was working part-time or something during the recession. I've yet to find somebody who hadn't experienced any of those factors I just mentioned. So during the recession, everybody was a bit more concerned about where they were spending money, even if they made the same amount of money or even more in rare cases. And so what that meant is that when we bought things, like from Amazon as an example, we suddenly wanted more for our money because it meant more to us. So that as a consumer has carried over into businesses as well. If there's one thing in common in the last 3 years, it's that every client I go into is looking for some sort of improvement, whether that's that they would like to rectify a situation, or they see it as a growth opportunity to provide extra value to their customers. So in essence, everybody wants more for less and absolutely quicker. And quicker leads us into the third thing, and that is that time matters. I mean, time's always mattered, and certainly as executives, no one has any time. We're all tied up every day, all day. We barely get anything done. However, what I've seen is in the last couple of years, and especially in the last year, time is even more of the essence. I mean, we have 8,000 messages, 10,000 messages coming at us every minute of the day via our phones and our computers and telephone calls and just all over, social media, etc. And we have meetings galore. We're still somewhat stuck a little bit in the survival mode and have 18,000 priorities going on at once for the most part. And so how do we free up time, and how do we deliver faster? What I've found is that most of my clients, if they can deliver consistently, of course, and a little bit faster than the competition, they're going to gain business. And so it's a big deal. It's also a new ball game in terms of sales growth. So prior to the recession, we were in a significant growth environment where it's never as simple as this, but as in inside sales or even customer service, you could pick up a phone and there might be a customer on the other side who just wanted to place an order. And that happened more often than not. It actually could even make us a little bit lazy. Now, that's not necessarily the case. For the most part, you have to be doing something different, something exceptional. You have to do something in order to maintain your customers and certainly to grow your customer base. So there's no longer as many opportunities for organic sales growth. And this is somewhat true to the demographic trend that's taking place as well. As we have, the baby boomers are beginning to retire. And as baby boomers are retiring, they typically spend less money. Certainly they may spend more money than they'd like because they may have a child move back home or something like that happening. But for the most part, there's been lots of studies that prove that you don't save for college education, buy diapers, do all these types of things that upgrade your house continually, which you do earlier on in life. So in essence, people are spending less money as they go into retirement, maybe more on luxury goods and those types of things. But as you spend less money, and with a consumption-based society, it's going to have an impact in terms of most of businesses' sales growth. So it means that you have to be a little bit more creative, and it's going to be more competitive as to how to grow sales. Also, cash is king. So even though during the recession, truly many of my clients had no cash or had scarce cash, now, even though many of them have cash and maybe even have extra cash, it doesn't matter because perception is reality and they're still very concerned about volatility. So cash is still king. As I talked about earlier, we're in an information overloaded society. So how do we sift through all this data and messages and people calling us and figuring out what to do and what decisions to make is not as easy as it sounds. And how do we even figure out what to do for our customers to provide service to them? So that's a challenge. And then there's increasingly complex needs. we're certainly in a global environment. There's more regulations. There's absolutely more risk in today's environment. Just look at, the credit card issues with security risk and those kinds of things, and it's all over the place through our supply chains. And sustainability is becoming a bigger topic. And it's also important to maintaining and retaining people, which is another key piece here is how do you fill the skills gap that's out there today so that you can have the right people on your team to handle these types of trends. So to sum it up, our baselines are critical, but they're no longer enough. And that's that cash is king, service is paramount, which relates back certainly to Amazon effect, and execution is everything. And it truly is true in terms of the Amazon effect as well, because service is going to be useless if you can't execute against your plans and actually make them happen. So the baselines are just that now. They're baselines. They must be an assumption, which is not easy to achieve. So in addition to that, though, we really need to focus on innovation, because the only way we're going to succeed in today's world is to be able to innovate. So we have to innovate or die, collaborate to thrive. And what I mean by that is, in today's world, if you aren't considering how to connect with your supply chain, with your referral sources, with your contacts, with your employees, there's just no way that you're going to succeed. And so we have to find ways to collaborate and provide that extra value to our customers. And then image will make or break you, and that's becoming more and more prevalent, and especially as the younger generation is coming up, they're concerned about the environment. They're concerned about image. The image is all out there now on the web. You can pretty much look up anything about anyone or about any company, and people do. Do they want to work for you? Do they want to do business with you in terms of customer service? Well, they might just find out. Do they want to do business with you as an individual and you as a company? So how do we succeed in this situation? We have to find ways to provide exceptional service. We have to go over and above in terms of service, and that's what we're going to talk about in terms of the study. At a high value and return for the customer, again, goes back to service and how do we make sure that the customer perceives additional value. And we need to do it at higher margins for us. So we need to make sure that we're, of course, being profitable and increasing margins along the way. So we need to find a win-win-win to create a competitive advantage. So one of the ways we can do that is by leveraging our number one asset. And when I say asset, I don't mean machines and tools, which is oftentimes on our balance sheets as assets. I mean our relationships, people. And this slide just kind of shows that, similar to a system slide that I show, and that is that in most ERP systems, which is the system you use to run your business, you don't use more than 20% of it. I've yet to see companies that really do that consistently. And so there's vast opportunity to leverage systems further. There's also vast opportunity to leverage people in your relationship networks. It's amazing how much potential there is in your relationship network, which, as you can imagine, ties directly back to customer service and how you can make sure that you understand your customers' needs and are providing value and are leveraging your relationships to make all that work together, which is the point of this next slide here, is to leverage your entire relationship network, your internal team and networks, which oftentimes is overlooked, but it's the most critical, your suppliers, your customers, your distribution partners, and your extended network of, there's lots and lots of webs within these networks. So that's really the keys to succeeding in the new normal. And the bottom line of all of this, including the Amazon effect research study that I performed, is that customer service matters. So we'll go into a couple of the statistics from the study so that we can talk about what's really important and then how we can utilize that information. And I might go into both as we go through this. So one of the key points is that 67% feel that they have customer service gaps versus Amazon-like offerings. Now, to back up here, Amazon certainly has blasted the scene, as I'm sure all of you know, with really innovative concepts that provide extra value to the customers that customers never knew they wanted until they experienced them. So for example, next day deliveries is commonplace without much freight, if any at all. Depends on if you're a Prime member. Sunday deliveries is now seen as the norm. I can tell you just from my own experience that my parents seem to have a lot of needs from Amazon. They don't order from Amazon. They call me and I order from Amazon for them. However, they have become accustomed to expecting that what they order will be delivered like right away. Same day even seems to be their expectation, which is actually something that they can get via Amazon. So once I delivered it same day, that became the new expectation for them, and they're not out of the norm. Certainly Amazon's done a lot of other things. They've talked about drones. They're always doing something that's innovative. They're they have the Kindle and the Kindle Fire in the phone and all sorts of things that they are doing in today's environment where they're actually making books commonplace without even having to pay and those kinds of things. So in essence, what's concluded from the Amazon Effect research study, and it's not just Amazon, it's also mega distributors like Amazon, is that it's a game changer. We have to pay attention if we want to stay in business, and if we want to, then who wants to just stay in business anyway? We need to thrive. So the other piece that's come out here is that websites are gaining in criticality. And that's interesting to me. Certainly it's true of service organizations, so this is appropriate to everyone, but it's absolutely true for manufacturers and distributors as well. And the majority of respondents use websites to display products and services at a minimum. So certainly everyone starts there because that's the point of the website. But many of them are using it for more and more things. And certainly one thing that Amazon does fabulously is manage returns. I mean, we expect it to be seamless. So now we're expecting our manufacturers and distributors to handle that just as well. Websites are also gaining in criticality. And when you look at it with respect to your website, where you see a gap, so the majority of our manufacturing and distribution and service respondents in our survey said that gaps are abound. I mean, basically they're everywhere you see because, of course, keeping up with all this is not an easy thing to do. But in essence, viewing and ordering products and services is certainly something that more of us need to do, and we need to make it easy to do so. But we also want to be able to track orders. I mean, think about tracking an order on Amazon. It's easy. What distribution customer, what manufacturing customer does not want to know where their order is at every moment? Actually, I'm working with several customers currently who have challenges in being able to provide their customers with, like, where is it, what's happening, when will it be ready? They want to know, and they want to know, they expect the Amazon type service. They expect to be able to track their order, pay invoices, like I said, managing returns, that's a key one as well. And they want all this information like now. Service expectations are also rising. So some of the ones that jump out at me are that 24/7 accessibility is critical today. So what that means is that we're expecting, the common practice for customer service is that we as individuals and leaders are available 24/7. So if I send a note as a CEO of a manufacturing firm to my supplier, let's say, on the weekend, I'm fully expecting that it's likely they're going to return my email or text message or social media request right away before Monday morning. So we're expected to be available 24/7 as customers and suppliers and partners. We're also expecting that we can peruse products in the middle of the night, and we can do, our customers can do that. So like, let's say we're all really busy. So if I'm a buyer for a manufacturing firm and I happen to have time on Sunday night, I want to be able to look at what my clients or what my customers have available or my suppliers have available and be able to order and or review status, and those kinds of things. So 24/7 accessibility is not an easy thing to maintain when you're talking about high tech and high touch. So it's more than just a website. I mean, certainly when we're talking about manufacturing distribution, we have ERP systems and other technology and portals, and the personal touch as far as people getting back to you. So there's quite a bit involved with that. Order tracking, I already brought up the importance of that, and what we're seeing is that the importance on customer tracking is increasing. Pricing and sales support, they're all vital as well. Let's see here. So additional service expectations that are increasing is that as much as all of that is important, and this is the same graph that we just saw, but I want to make sure that we don't overlook the importance of the increasing requirement for product customization and service customization. So when you think about that, what does that mean? I mean, from a manufacturing environment perspective, it could be that you do product configuration, masked customization. There's lots of terms thrown around, but in essence, how do you put in extra value customizing your product or your service at the last minute for your customers so that they provide extra value? That's something very important for all of us to be thinking about. Next, a majority of respondents feel that customers have become more apt to negotiate price and do price shopping. Well, that's not surprising, because one of the things we certainly can do today is just Google it. My aunt, who doesn't even use the computer, knows all about Google. So basically she says, Lisa, could you Google this on your phone, and could you do this and Google that? So if my aunt can know about Google and has never used the internet herself, certainly our manufacturers, distributors, service organizations, contacts, colleagues are expecting to be able to do the same. And so you can compare prices, do price shopping. So in today's world for car shopping, it's really quite interesting, is everybody knows what they should be paying and what features and benefits exist before showing up at the car lot. So it's really changed how that process works. And if you think about it, just being feature and benefit driven is no longer, you know, just a baseline, and it's a baseline that better be available without you even talking, really. And then how do you take that to the next step is the question, because everybody's expecting that, so how do you stand out in the crowd? In addition to that, most importantly, for manufacturing and distribution, delivery and lead time expectations are increasing. So I'm continually seeing that if you're in the ballpark in terms of course, product and product quality and pricing, you don't even have to be the lowest price. You just have to be in the ballpark. And that's even true of when you can price shop on something like Amazon. But if you can deliver consistently 5% faster than the competition, or same-day deliveries, if you're thinking about, you know, distribution, or maybe hourly deliveries, depends on what the situation is in your industry and in your situation, then what I'm finding is that that's how you can grow sales. So just 5% improvement over the competition, with everything else being in the ballpark, is sufficient to grow your business, and in most industries that I work with. And so it's definitely something to take note of. Of course, if it was just that easy to say, poof, make it a faster delivery, we'd all be doing it. But it's not that easy. It means that there's a whole lot of process improvement that has to go behind the scenes. And that's what we all have to be thinking about, because it's going to be critical in today's new normal business environment. And as I said earlier, some of the trends that my clients are seeing also came out in the Amazon research study, and that is that quality and service must be an assumption. So customers just expect that all this is going to happen. So now what we need to be doing is providing options. So you know how on Amazon when you look at a page it says, oh, well, you're ordering such and such. Would you also like this, this, and this, which should come with it? Well, we obviously need to be working with our internal resources to be able to cross-sell and be able to make sure that we're providing value so that somebody has everything that they really need. If we truly understand the customer's needs, what can we do, offer, upsell, and or give away, refer to other people that aren't even us, just to make sure that the customer gets a complete experience and they have all the options they need. In today's world, we want options. We want to be able to choose. So we have to think about how we can do that, and then how do we offer that so that it's on our websites, it's in our customer service procedures, is available in our shipping processes, and our planners understand how to do it. We need to be able to do all of those things. Also, in today's environment, tracking your customer service is no longer enough. So certainly we need to know internally what our on-time delivery is, and what our, hopefully we have no past due, but if we have past due, what our past due is, and what our customer service is to our key customers. But it's no longer enough. Now our customers are going to tell us. So they're coming in almost all the clients that I'm working with. Key customers are providing my clients, manufacturers and distributors, with scorecards saying, this is how you performed. So this is, we were expecting it this day, and we really received it that day. And, we have 100% perfect order, and this is all in our perception. So if we changed our mind, we now consider that to be part of the situation, which is very hard for my clients to accommodate, because especially for those customers that change their mind all the time. How do we keep up with this? It means we better become robust in our planning processes, our sales and operations planning processes, and the like, which we'll talk about in a bit. Another thing that has come up is that if you aren't capturing demand data, you're missing an opportunity. So one of the ways that we'll go through when we get to how do we use this information, but how are we collecting information from our customers? In today's world, we have vast opportunities to do so. Sometimes it's as simple as just asking, would you please send us your sales history to your clients or your customers or your end consumers of the types of products that we send you, or of the products we send you, so that you're not asking for competitive information, you're just asking for how your products and services are doing. So one of them is just asking. Another is there's lots of this type of data out there. So how do we capture it, and how do we ask for it, and how do we understand our service performance? If you aren't thinking about those topics, you are missing a vast opportunity. And probably not only that, but you're not going to be as successful, because all of this data can be captured and utilized in your planning processes and in your sales and operations planning processes, which we'll talk further about, which will be one of the ways that you can actually make sure that you're providing the best value at and improved margins for you as well. So what are the folks that were surveyed doing in response? Well, many of them are redesigning their website. That's not surprising. I mean, everyone's going to start there, you would think. The good news is that a lot of them are doing that, but a lot of them are saying that they can't do it fast enough. They're also providing more data and extending hours, and those are some of the other additional ways that people are responding. They're also adding additional customer service staff because they're needing additional people to support the process. It doesn't just happen that all this service falls into place. So that takes us really back to, can you find the right people? Can you retain top talent? That's a whole other story. And some of other skill gap conversations. I did another research study on the skills gap, and so if you'd like to know more about that information, please take a look at my website. What also we're doing is we're building out technology infrastructure to meet key customer expectations. And it's interesting because there's lots of bars on this chart, but really what you should take away is not worrying about all these little things. It means that all types of technology are key today. That's what it really means. ERP, so the system you use to run your business, CRM, customer relationship management, barcoding, data collection, big data, business intelligence. I mean, I could go on and on. Forecasting systems, demand planning systems. Now, it's definitely not a good idea to just randomly go out and think, oh, I need all of those. Let's start doing it today, because you'll fail undoubtedly. So it's coming up with a strategy and how you can put those into your company's strategy and planning processes that'll be important. But the key here is are you thinking about investing in technology? And are you thinking about which technology is going to be most important to you so that you can provide additional service at better margins for you and have your customer become a loyal fan? Interesting, when you talk about technology, spreadsheets still win the race, and that's not surprising. I actually think they'll probably win the race forever because spreadsheets are quite good at what they do. With that said, spreadsheets only go so far. And so when you start to get to tracking demand data and digging into what your customers, collaborating with customers and suppliers, and really taking advantage of all the data in your supply chain, you have to go beyond a spreadsheet unless you have a complete wizard at spreadsheets, which some of us do have. That reminds me suddenly of this woman I met at one of my clients who was a consultant at the time, who was, I mean, you could see smoke coming out of her head as she typed. It was just amazing. She was amazing in terms of what she did and amazing with how fast she typed. I've never in my life seen anybody type that fast. But anyway, my point is not everyone has that. So, and even she thinks that it's a good idea to utilize some tools to help make things easier. So BI is business intelligence, and report writers, it's, you know, it's, we'll talk more about it under technology. Don't get crazy with all these terms, because really it's a fancy, there's fancy words, big data, BI, et cetera, that all really means how do you use report writing, drill down kind of capabilities to make good decisions. What are our greatest challenges? So it's a tie, according to the survey. One is we have to understand what our customers want. And I have to agree with that. I'm really glad that that came out that way in the survey, because no matter how much we think we understand what our customers want, I guarantee you we probably do not. I found this to be true with employees as well. When I was a vice president of operations and supply chain, you know, we talked about goals all the time, and we talked about what we were doing, and I thought it was really obvious what we needed to be working on. And it was interesting that I would sit down with my key, really exceptional direct report, let's say, and we would have a conversation about what are the 3 things we really need to do in the next quarter. And we actually would have a give and take and have some, not surprises, but you know, we wouldn't have both been on the same page to the degree that we ended up coming out of that conversation with. And that's just because it's not as easy as it sounds to be clear on what we want. So we have to go the extra mile and make sure we understand what our customers truly want. And it's not just, would you like this, would you like that? Who wouldn't like all these things? But how, you know, what does that mean to them? Is it something they're willing to pay for? Is it something that's going to be meaningful to them, to their customers? Or what? Or is it just something that, sure, if you're going to give it to me for free, I love it. And then it's a tie with that, and then also balancing what customers want with the costs. That's a key thing too, because after all, technology and people and all these things do cost money. So are we going to invest in something that's going to have a return? A long-term return is the key. So that's the challenge, is how do we come up with the right things to invest in, the right technology to invest in instead of all of it, so that we can make the biggest impact on our customer service. That's really where we need to be thinking. Resources are a close second. So like I said earlier, the skill gap is alive and well, meaning most of my clients, if not all, have a problem where they don't have all the people with the right skills to meet today's ever-increasing complex requirements, which change by the day. So we'd have to have continual learners in every single position within the company. And since the recession, now we're seeing people retire, move, get promoted. All sorts of things are happening, and they're leaving, you know, vast skill gaps in their wake. So, so it's definitely something that has to be thought about, and it's not surprising that it came out of this research study as well. All right. There we go. Respondent feedback on the Amazon effect. So I wanted to summarize a bit of what we found out here. So really, if you think about it, customers want it now. They expect 24/7 availability and accessibility. We expect customization, so we want what we want, and we expect over and beyond. Basically, we need to go the extra mile, and the extra mile is no longer the extra mile. So how do we do all this? Well, we need to create a customer service edge. And what I mean by that is we need to find the sweet spot where we aren't focusing on 18 things at once to try to improve customer service, but we're focusing on just those critical things that our customers truly want and value, meaning we have to go back and think about what do they value, how does this fit with our strategy, because none of this makes any sense to do if it's not a fit with our strategy. We may as well find different customers. So we have to think about that culture, our culture, and our strategy. And then we find the sweet spot between people, process, and systems that will help deliver these items, products, services, extra value, for our customers so that we can be providing exceptional value at a higher return for our customers and a higher margin for us. So I'll go into each of these three areas in a little bit of detail, and then possibly go through a case study and open it up to questions. So when you look at people, I think one of the questions that I always ask is, have you ever seen an organization with happy customers and unhappy employees? It sounds silly, but if you really think about it, I've never seen one. And have you? Which means that you may not even need to start with your customers. You probably need to start with your employees. Because after all, who is talking to your customers after all? So unfortunately, as much as we'd probably like to jump into the latest and greatest way to improve customer service, we really better start with our employees. How do we find and retain and train our employees? Go back to that skills gap conversation I was talking about earlier. As I said, you could go into a lot more detail if you read my articles and research study on the skills gap and those types of topics. But people are the heart of service. And a couple of the tips I'd like to leave you with today is to think about empowerment, because one of the things that's true of customer service, if you just think about your everyday experiences, those people who are empowered to provide you with that extra value, and as they see that you have a need that you had no idea you needed, maybe, they had no idea you needed, but they're on the lookout for what you need. And it could be something you need that doesn't cost anything. It just costs them being observant, which happens all the time. If you have some need like that and you are empowered to deliver it, now obviously free things are more or less, most people would be empowered to do it, because it would be strange for any company that wants to be successful to prevent their employees to being empowered to providing extra value at no cost. However, you'd be surprised if you have an environment that does not empower people, no one's going to be looking. So think all you want that someone's going to provide that extra service, they will not. So you have to have an empowered environment, and that does not mean just giving away the farm. It means that you have guidelines, people understand their roles, you have those conversations, and they understand what the priorities are. If they see an opportunity to give their number one customer, your number one customer, some added service, whether it's free or $1,000, can they do it? Because after all, time matters today, and if they can't do it right on the spot, don't even bother. If they have to go ask for approval, suddenly the customer doesn't care. I don't care. If I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, great. Now I have to go through, waiting to figure this out, and it's just no longer seen as extra value. Now it's just like an assumption. Second is engagement. So it goes along with empowerment, is how do you engage your employees? So they're interested in your relationship network, their relationship network, your customer supplier supply chain network. How do they feel that collaboration is key? And are they engaged in making sure that all this goes successfully and that they're successful and you're successful? That's the question. And so really what it means is you have to step back and talk about the vision. They have to know where you're going, and they have to know how they fit in. That sounds easy, but it's not easy. That's exactly, really, if you just do that, you'll be fine. If they understand the vision, they understand how they fit in, and then they are empowered to do those things that will enable customer service, you'll be set. And then, of course, we want to provide innovative service. So we want to be more like Amazon and be able to provide those innovative services, which means that you have to have innovative ideas. And the crux of innovation is to really take a step back and say, I will allow my customers and my suppliers and my employees to try things out, even if it means that I have a bad result at first. So with innovation, one of the keys to take away is that you have to encourage failure, which seems very much misaligned with most every organization I go into. I mean, who wants to encourage failure when it's at month end, quarter end, year end? Well, unfortunately, for your quarter end, you have to encourage people to try things, and if they don't try, they won't succeed. And there's no way, I've never seen anyone who was extremely innovative not fail somewhere along the line. So we have to encourage people to fail, and it goes against the grain. So if you actually come up with an environment where you can encourage people to fail, not repeatedly at the same thing, obviously. You want to provide feedback and all the mentoring we talked about earlier, but you want to provide them that capability to try things out, then you're going to be way ahead of your competition when it comes to service and new ideas for products and everything else. From our process side, so the second circle is process, is the processes that most relate to customer service for manufacturers and distributors are going to be things like order fulfillment. And order fulfillment is critical. How does your order flow through each step, each person, each system function? If you map that out, it's always surprising. Always. There's always opportunity. So just taking a look at order fulfillment and how you can improve that process and gain feedback from each of those parties along the way is invaluable. Be thinking about service options, how you can provide options to your processes. You want to make them seamless and easy. Think back to the website. Do you want a website that's hard to use for your customers? Do you want to use one like that? Do you want returns to be difficult? I mean, you don't want people to return things just because they feel like it, but do you want to make it arduous so that they don't have any need to come back? And you want to be able to do high-tech, high-touch, which we already talked about, which means it's not just all technology. I mean, there are customers out there that want to talk to somebody, so you have to have the right combination. And Amazon actually does provide that right combination. You can actually talk to somebody. Continual eye for process improvement. Well, that's somewhat true across the board in today's environment, as we absolutely have to be thinking about process improvement, but we really need to be encouraging our employees, remember we start there, our customers, our suppliers, our other supply chain partners, to look for process improvements. Do we accept feedback? I mean, if our supplier has an idea that might be somewhat difficult to do, or something that we don't really want to do, or something we have to address that we don't really want to address, are we going to ignore it, or are we going to are we going to actually listen to them? Because I believe me, they're not going to give us two chances to provide feedback if we don't accept the first one well. Doesn't mean we have to do it, but we have to at least accept the idea. So a continual eye for process improvement. And then one thing that puts this all together is sales and operations planning, or sales inventory operations planning, sometimes referred to as SIOP. So sales, inventory, and operations planning, just to give you the quick view of, I think this is one of the process improvement initiatives that we can all do at manufacturers and distributors that will absolutely result in an improved service level. It's one of the key benefits, and I've seen it work many times in the last couple of years as I've been focusing more and more efforts on this, because it's one of the only things I can think of that will improve service levels, improve turnaround times, so reducing your lead times, improve your cash, so improving your inventory turns, improving your collaboration, and your margins all in one. Now, if it was this easy to do, we would all be doing it, right? But it's not rocket science. It's just that it requires getting everybody aligned on one plan, in essence. It means, how do we understand better what our customers really want, demand, and it's not just in terms of like number of pieces or number of dollars or types of services, but what do they really want and what goes into all of that. But How do we get a true picture on our demand? And how do we line that up in the most effective and efficient manner with our supply and our supply chain? Meaning, what's our production schedules? How do we most efficiently run our operations? How do we set up supply agreements with our suppliers? How do we collaborate with both customers and suppliers to make both of these align not just with us and our customer and our supplier, but with our entire supply chain network? That's how you drive true efficiencies where you can have a win-win-win in terms of margin, so it's not win-lose, and you improve service around the board. That's what I've seen as one of the key process points for improvement in terms of the Amazon effect. Next, from a systems and technology standpoint, what we need to do to thrive is think about ERP systems. So now it totally depends. If you have an ERP system, meaning the system you use to run your business, enterprise resource planning, then most likely, if it's one of the standard ones in today's world, it's going to do the 80-20 okay. Now, if you're selecting a new one, you absolutely want to think about your critical success factors and what's most important to your key customers, and that's what you look for in a system. You don't worry about all the rest of it because it's going to do it all fine. But if you already have one, most likely you just need to leverage it further. Go back to that people slide we were looking at earlier. Most everybody is only using 20% of their system at best. So just utilize those pieces of the system, or pull the data out of the system and do a spreadsheet, or find an add-on system, or upgrade your system in those areas that are most critical to your service, and you'll have achieved the 80-20. Now, the other thing you really do need to do when it comes to service is to think about e-commerce. And that might sound strange for manufacturing, certainly shouldn't sound strange for distribution, but in today's world, everybody wants to be able to look at your website and to see your products and your services and be able to peruse them anytime you want, place orders, return materials, look at your portal, and that's certainly popular in aerospace as an example, is every key customer has a portal with all the information and your service information, your demand information, and just sifting through all this information is a whole other story. But e-commerce is one of those ways that is one of the systems that you can utilize to better connect with your customers. And so it's definitely one of those key areas. You know, CRM is related as well. Websites, as we said earlier, according to the Amazon effect, you got to start there. Everybody should have a website, period. And more people are checking you out on your website. Remember, image is important. So 10 years ago wasn't nearly as important as it is now. Even 2 years ago wasn't as important as it is now. Your potential employees, your customers, your suppliers, everybody's going to be checking you out if they're not ordering. So it's got to be seen as feeding multiple needs. Order fulfillment technologies. So, you know, in today's world, you have to supply multiple channels, such as retail, distribution. You know, there's just multiple channels and multiple ways of handling those channels. We could talk a bit more about the whole warehousing and logistics side of things, but just know that you have to think through the best way and do some research on the best. There are some best practices in today's environment to how to handle multi-channel situations, and you should be thinking about pursuing those. Big data and business intelligence, as I said earlier, how do you get information out of your system and sift through it to make good decisions? That's what that means. And so really what you ought to do is, there are some softwares that help you slice and dice data so that you can easily drill down and get to your key customers and get all sorts of information. But don't get overwhelmed with all that, because you can just get simple reports out of every system, and I can tell you that we've achieved tremendous improvement in terms of service and margins with my clients using some of the worst systems you've ever seen. So it's possible to do that with what you have, and in the right situations you might want to invest in some additional technology there. And then you also want to collaborate, of course, with your customers and suppliers, and that includes on the system and technology and integration standpoints. So I think I could go through a couple of these case studies. I've already talked to what the outcomes were. It's just I'll put them in the right sequence with the right case study for you. But I think I'm going to ask to see if you have any questions, and then I'll come back to case studies if we have extra time.
Well, great. Thank you, Lisa. We will take and jump in right now, and because there is about 6 or 7 minutes left on the presentation. Again, Lisa, thanks for inspiring us here. I think the Amazon drone was just driving by my window here. So let's go through and talk a little bit about questions and how to submit those. There is in your dashboard a little panel that has, it actually says questions on it. Below where in the form there's an empty spot, you just type in your question here, hit submit, and you will be able to hear me read that aloud for Lisa to answer. So let's start first here. Oh, also, in the case of some of you, you've been emailing me directly. If you don't want to use the software for your questions, just email me at julie@thedoorgroup.com, and that's also in the chat message that was sent earlier. Lori has a question. Lisa, we're updating our website, but just as we do, it seems that the industry and customer service expectations change. How are you supposed to keep up? So it seems, you know, that's a good question.
Yeah, it's absolutely a good question. And one of the things that and that's true, I find that's true not just with websites, but it's actually true with software and technology. Like I have partnership with some IT gurus, and the definition of in those areas is that the day you end up implementing a software, it's already outdated. So what I think is you should make a rapid yet good assessment of what like features you would need on your website up front, like what's most critical. Just pick a couple. Start, you know, don't start with that entire list I showed you in terms of what all of our what all the needs are. Just start with like offering products and services, and make sure you do that well. And then once you get the first thing done, then I find that you gain steam, and you can probably add like 2 and 3 at the same time. And soon before you know it, you're going to be able to keep up and even think about how can I add extra value that I wasn't doing before. Because if you try to keep up as you go in the very beginning, it's likely that you'll just become overwhelmed and frustrated and won't actually achieve any of those well. And one of the key tenets to service is that reliability is an assumption, but it's something that is not in common with most people's experiences. So if you think about it, if you can just come up with a really good functioning website for the things that you think your customers are most critical to your customers, and you make it reliable, you're going to beat out several pieces of the competition, and then you can go from there.
Okay, good. Thank you. And Mark's a little frustrated. It's kind of like, you know, if you ask your customers if they want certain specific services, and a lot of them are dictated by what Amazon and other mega distributors are offering, they're going to say yes. But how do you balance the cost then with the extra service? You know, they don't. It's not implied necessarily that if they ask for these services, then it'll cost you this much money.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I said earlier in my presentation that which ones are they really willing to pay for? Now, whether they're willing to or not is another story, but at least if they were important enough to be willing to pay for, those are where you start from a prioritization standpoint. And then I would agree with you. Certainly, Amazon has not made money all the time, and they are able to put that kind of money into their business to grow the model. So it's going to be near impossible to compete with Amazon, as an example. However, your competitors are going to have the same challenges. So what I think is that you would look for ways to, first of all, make sure that you really understand, because if you're going to invest money, you want to make sure that you really understand your customers' requirements, and as I said, most times we don't. Then once you understand them and you just pick 2. And so when you pick 2, I would collaborate with my customers, with my suppliers. Actually, I've seen more and more people collaborating with competition, collaborating with trade associations, if you collaborate with your relationship network, you're bound to find ways to do it for less money. Now, that doesn't mean that some sort of investment is going to be required, and unfortunately it's partly what's going to be required to stay in business today and then eventually thrive. But it's key if you can collaborate and find ways to help each other. And strangely enough, even competitors collaborating can find ways to make it a win-win or have areas of specialty. So it's I mean, obviously you don't collude on pricing, but if you can collaborate with your supply chain members, I do find that that's one way where you can, if you will, save money or make sure that your margin is sustained. And then also starting programs like, well, sales and operations planning is somewhat collaborating with your relationship network because it's internal and external. So those types of things are going to help give you some ways of servicing your customers without breaking the bank up front.
Okay, good. Thank you. Lisa, we have about 3 minutes left. Just real quickly from an announcement standpoint, for those of you, are certainly correct in assuming that this recording of this webinar will be available as well as a copy of the slides that we used in the presentation. So we'll have that available in probably early next week. So again, if you would like to receive a copy of this, email me directly at julie@thedoorgroup.com or just put it in the question and answer section, and I'll be happy to send that to you next week. Lisa, any final thoughts, or if you have a few minutes here to want to go through the case studies, and then also, well, there you go, talk about it.
I figured I'd move on to the next piece, and maybe I'll wrap an example into here. So service and quality must be an assumption. Certainly I could give you 100 case studies, actually, unfortunately, of examples where people got carried away providing extra value or thinking about the latest fad. You know, I did talk a little bit about lean thinking in this presentation. I just didn't call it that. But some people consider that to be like you do an event and suddenly everything's fixed. Well, it doesn't work that way. So instead of getting caught up in all these fads, you got to start with just like the simple. How do you do the base functionality like the products on your website so that it's reliable, it's good, it's exceptional in terms of providing what you, the basics, and then you build from there. So you have to start with that being an assumption. And then going the extra mile is no longer a differentiator. So what it means is, yes, we really need to have empowered employees, and that's actually part of the answer to the last question as well, is where I was talking about, you know, how can you do this for less money? Well, I know this might sound strange, but I've seen it happen. And if you can work on empowerment, engagements, getting everybody in your organization going on the same pace, understanding the costs. You know, you don't want to share things that you can't share with them, but share what you can. Make it part of their process as well and let them see how they're contributing, and I guarantee you that they will have ideas and they will have relationship networks that will save you more money than you probably thought was even possible as you're implementing some of these solutions. So make sure you utilize that as well as you're going the extra mile. And then time matters. So if you're thinking about priorities, go back to time. Because if you can save time, if you can do something that will help free up time and better utilize time, you're going to be seen as a value add. So time is a big deal. Leverage your data and your technology, and start with what you have, similar to the basics. I mean, there's no need to invest in all these new technologies. Like I said, I've seen some of the worst systems ever that people thought they should throw out provide information that we are able to use to surpass competition in terms of coming up with information on demand and services, etc. So start with what you have. You'd be surprised at what you have. And then add on to the specific areas that are critical to your business. So if e-commerce is key, think about that. But don't think about replacing your whole system or, you know, vice versa. And then it all goes back to the people. So I sort of said that, but that's perhaps a good way to close that up, is to make sure that you're thinking about your people. And that's one of the reasons why Amazon hasn't lost its answering the telephone capability. It's that people matter. And we want to make sure that, and people also leverage technology. So I really believe that that's cornerstone to pretty much any topic I could talk about, but definitely to the Amazon effect. Now, one of the ways we can keep in touch, speaking of people, my monthly newsletter is called Profit Through People, and it's a digest of news, trends, what are the latest things I'm seeing, the latest technologies, how do we, tips and strategies about topics like the Amazon effect and customer service. So if you're interested in receiving that, it's free to anyone on this webinar. You can go ahead and use that link that I have here on the page, or you can go visit my website at www.lma-consultinggroup.com and sign up. I also do a weekly tips email, which is short and quick. Like let's say there's a Amazon is in the news. That has happened, and I've actually sent out a tip about that. Amazon's been in the news for such and such. Who knows what they'll come up with tomorrow? And I relate that back to something that you could do today, assuming you don't have anything in place. What can almost anyone do that's just a process or a phone call, etc., that will help you achieve improved performance? And so that's what the weekly tips is about. So feel free to sign up for any of those, and feel free to get in touch with me if you have any additional questions. I'd be happy to send you articles and case studies, etc. So here is my information, and I appreciate everyone's attendance today.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa, and everybody else. Have a great day. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to providing you valuable information again in the future.
Great. Thank you.